Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back once again to the Horus Heresy lore breakdown. We are now on the 5th short story in the Shadows of Treachery anthology, Raven's Flight. And this one sets the stage for how and why the Raven Guard were rescued from the killing fields of Istvan. And the star player in this momentous achievement is a man by the name of Marcus Valerius, who is currently on deliverance, which sounds like an absolute shithole, by the by. He wakes up covered in sweat after having a nightmare of a flock of ravens being murdered, a nightmare he's had every night for quite some time now. He gets into the shower, hoping to wash away the horrors and at least the cold sweat that he's probably soaked in at this point. And then he enjoys his 45 seconds of allotted water. A 45 seconds shower. Alright, I see. This doesn't sound like a place I want to vacation. But hey, at least he has a whole 2 45-second allotments per day, so, you know. That's something, I suppose. But regardless of the somewhat draconian water rationing, which probably is again necessary considering the nature of deliverance, Valerius and his dreams are quite important to all of this, and will in fact remain pretty damn important throughout the rest of the Horus Heresy as well. He started having these dreams 7 days ago, and the Raven Guards and the other punishment details sent to deal with Horus were also supposed to arrive on Istvan 7 days ago. Coinky-dink? Well, no. Not at all, in fact. But, well, Valerius has a little bit of a problem here, does he not? The Imperium of this point in time is, of course, a very secular entity, but still one that has a great deal of prejudice towards those with, unusual abilities and or gifts, at least amongst normal people. People have manifested considerably smaller powers than this, and gotten picked up by the Black Ships previously. So obviously Valerius does not want to consider that this might be some form of psychic power or foresight or mutation. Instead, he latches onto something that Corax told him before leaving for Istvan. He told Valerius that this was Astartes' business, and that is why Valerius and his Imperial army cohorts needed to remain on deliverance. But Corax also said that if he had need of him, then Valerius would know about it. Now, I don't think Corax has the power to actually do anything like this, or at the very least, I don't believe it's ever been hinted at that Corax has had psychic powers of this nature. He, of course, has the ability to turn bloody invisible, which is obviously some form of power, but sending dreams and visions, and especially to some random Imperial army commander, doubtful. In all due likelihood, this is more something akin to a latent psychic ability on behalf of Valerius. Now, the problem is, how does he explain this to Bran, the commander of the Raven Guard garrison left behind to protect the Raven Guard's homeworld? Because, well, he can't just come out and say, like, "Hi, so I think I might be some kind of psyker, so listen to me, please." That's not going to work. And at the same time, telling Bran that he's having dreams about this is probably not also going to be particularly effective, although that is the approach he chooses to go with. Bran doesn't believe him for even an instance, which, I mean, fair enough. Often when it comes to situations like this, you can ask yourselves, like, well, why didn't they listen to the warnings? Well, in this case, the reason why is pretty goddamn self-explanatory, is because the warning is a literal dream that some random Imperial Army commander has. Or, well, I say random, he is fairly high-ranking and trusted amongst the command structure of the Raven Guard, so that, of course, gives him some degree of leeway. Hell, any other man would probably just have been shot outright, or at the very least sent off to the brig to sleep off whatever narcotics he has clearly ingested an unhealthy quantity of. But even if he is spared these fates, Valerius is unable to convince Bran of the urgency of his visions. And, again, it's hardly a surprise. Meanwhile, on Istvan, things are heating up rather rapidly. We get a couple of brief looks into what is happening there as well, which I really do appreciate. I want to see more of what happened in the aftermath of Istvan covered, honestly, but considering how far the Horus Heresy has progressed at this point and how little we know of it, that's unlikely. I do have those massive-ass source books for 30k, the game, basically, that I haven't read through yet, but they do delve a fair bit deeper into Istvan. At some point, I really do need to do a Battle of Istvan video as well, almost like a mini larger lore series. I'll get to it eventually. I'll probably have to take like a 2-week thing to do that, because that's actually a fairly big thing. I want to do some animations around it as well, so. Anywho, that's in the future. I'll get to it. Eventually. Now, Corax tells a little bit about the retreat. First and foremost, Vulcan wanted to protect the landing zones, but Cora said, fuck that, those are already overrun, and they were. I mean, hell, it would be the first point of target for the rebels, so then again, it's Vulcan, you know? He probably understood it as well, but he needs to save whatever lives he can, and so he headed towards the area in which he could potentially do that instead of retreating. Meanwhile, the Raven Guards were all ordered to disperse and begin disengaging from the enemy by whatever means necessary, which at this point in time is the only reasonable order to give. It's not like even a Primarch could organize a withdrawal on this scale, and definitely not just over a Vox link, and so it would be far better to just entrust the various unit commanders, the sergeants and the captains, to organize whatever forces they can grab from nearby and begin breaking out from the betrayal. It's the best option in my opinion. Of course, it is still a massive betrayal, and they are caught in a cauldron between two enemy forces, and so after a fair few days of withdrawing and linking up with other scattered Raven Guard elements, Corax has finally managed to scrounge together something along the lines of a strike force of some 4,000 Space Marines, and he uses this to strike out against various pursuit columns. We even see them destroying an Iron Warrior column as well here, but by any and all estimates at that point in time, something along the lines of 75% of all the Raven Guard forces on the planet are now gone, which is devastating casualties, of course, but 4,000 Space Marines are, well, that's still 4,000 Space Marines. A significant force, absolutely. And as mentioned, Corax used this to strike out against his pursuers. We get one example of an engagement with an Iron Warriors column, where he sets up an ambush for it, giving them a target to their fore, while swinging around and hitting them in the rear and sides, utilizing his own personal combat prowess to essentially make up one entire flank of this surrounding maneuver. Demonstrating once again that Corax is probably one of, if not the most lethal of all the Primarchs. Just a shame he couldn't kill Lorgar. That would have been a good start to the Horus Heresy, in my opinion. But oh well. Whilst Corax is having fun on Istvan, Valerius attempts once again to convince Bran of his dreams. He tries to convince him that at the very least, Valerius should be allowed to take his men and go to Istvan and see if anything is up, you know, just in case. If nothing's wrong, well, they'll come right back and nothing's really been lost. Apparently, they're only a week or so away, which, okay, I think that would be a little bit of a problem, and in fact, why the hell didn't Horus then just immediately invade Deliverance? But details. Valerius, however, is shot down once more, and Bran even goes so far as to straight out suggest, or state pretty much, that maybe Valerius wants to go to the Istvan system because he wants to join up with Horus instead. That's quite the accusation. And it turns out that Bran is a little bit of a human hater, you see. Now, to be fair, some heated words pass between the two. Valerius, for example, pointing out that this isn't any of my guys doing, Horus is one of your people. You're the ones who started all of this mess. And then Bran goes, you shouldn't speak ill of your betters, and so on and so on. A bit too much in the way of Eldar diplomacy on both sides, to be honest, though I gotta say too, Bran is being a little bit unreasonable here. Now, sure, yes, Valerius literally has his dreams to back this up, which is nonsense, but surely he'd be able to send something. A frigate, a light cruiser, a reconnaissance craft, or maybe even seize a civilian vessel, just to go over to Istvan and see what's up if it's so nearby. And when Valerius suggests essentially doing just that, just taking a vessel and some of his own men, Bran informs him that Deliverance is well equipped with orbital defenses. Alrighty then. No joy rides for Valerius, I suppose. I get it, I really do. Bran has, of course, been ordered to stay on Deliverance. It is the direct order from his Primarch. He's not supposed to leave, but surely, after no word has arrived from the Expeditionary Fleet, and a well-respected, higher-ranking Imperial Army commander is telling him that he's getting bad vibes about this, bad juju, surely he'd be at least a little interested, And eventually, it has to be taken to its logical conclusion. Valerius organizes his own fleet elements and makes ready to go to Istvan. Bran makes good on his threat. He locks the orbital batteries onto Valerius's fleet and says, "No, you may not, motherfucker. You may not." Valerius then pleads to him, once again, that he has to let them go. What is the worst thing that can happen? And they get back into the discussion that Valerius might be a traitor, etc. And then finally Valerius suggests that Bran should come along with the fleet. Literally hold a gun to Valerius's head. If there is any treachery afoot, then Valerius will be the very first person to pay for it. And surely Bran and 1,000 Astartes could easily stop and take over whatever mutiny or traitorness that the Imperial Army elements could possibly try and come up with. The cuntiest part of it all is, of course, that Bran will sacrifice Valerius's Imperial Army personnel to rescue the Raven Guard later on. It's just, We lack a scene where Bran basically gets down on his knees and goes, "I'm sorry, I was a retard," but he's a space marine and he doesn't particularly like humans apparently, so there you go with that one. But Valerius's arguments are convincing enough. Bran eventually begins to think that, okay, if Valerius is a little bit of a bastard, then the worst thing that'll happen is that I'll have to subdue him and I might lose my honor, which is a significant thing for Astartes, bear in mind, but the worst thing that can happen if Valerius is right is that Lord Corax and pretty much the entirety of the Raven Guard's Legion is wiped the fuck out. Yeah. That is a pretty damn weighty hypothetical there, isn't it? And again, Bran, of course, must be thinking that shit is wrong here. No word from Istvan whatsoever, despite the fact that, 6 legions were descending upon 3? Surely it should be a complete walkover, right? Complete naval superiority, air superiority, a solid advantage on the ground. There should have been message of some sort by now, either of a victory, or of a stalemate, or something, but nope. Nothing. And so Bran allows his curiosity to get the better of him, and he agrees to come along with Valerius and head to the Istvan system, which was the correct choice. After 98 days, was it? Corax is finally cornered by Angron's word bearers, an entire legion bearing down on 3,000 odd warriors, and Bran arrives alongside Valerius in just the nick of time to whisk Lord Corax from out beneath the teeth of Angron. And he is very, very angry, and now also disturbingly red. Wordbearers. Yeah, they've already started their descent into madness. There's also, before all of this happens too, there is a small segment in which Corax infiltrates the enemy's encampment and walks amongst the traitors. He, doesn't really do anything of particular note, but he does consider how this could have come to pass. And he brings up a little bit of a philosophical argument. The Emperor gave the Legiones Astartes access to the entire galaxy's resources. He gave them access to its armies. He gave them access to the superhuman Space Marine legions. And he told them to conquer the galaxy in his name and to make a better tomorrow for humanity. And what did the Legiones Astartes do with all of this power? Well, they made themselves into de facto warrior kings over the areas they conquered. Some with considerably more compassion than others, don't get me wrong. Guilliman's reign of Ultramar, for example, is certainly a benevolent empire within an empire, but it still does not change the fact that the Guilliman did it. He created a fief for himself, essentially. Then you've got people like Perturabo, who garrisons every world he conquers. You've got people like Angron, who wipes out every world he conquers. And of course, Lorgar, who made himself into a petty priest king, de facto, of the worlds that he conquered, spending years upon years to indoctrinate them. Certainly, the flaws of the Astartes were visible early on, but it's difficult to catch this, isn't it? Of course, the Space Marine legions would take control over some of the planets. They need recruits. Of course, they would create their own little fiefdoms and kingdoms to improve them, because the Space Marines are, well, better than humanity in many, many regards, including their administrative capabilities, as demonstrated, quite ably so, by the realms of Ultramar. I don't think there was any avoiding that, although I do agree that the Emperor should probably have considered purging some more legions. Again, whatever the crimes of the two purged legions were, Angron, fucking Angron, is the principal example of this. Now, the Emperor, again, did dumb things because reasons. He decides to teleport Angron off the battlefield for no particular reason, instead of just going down there and helping him, which would have done the exact same thing and would have gotten Angron more on side. And then, despite Angron treating his legion like a chew toy for half of his reign, barely leading them and killing more than half of his captains before finally agreeing to lead the rest, all of this would seem like plentiful reason for the Emperor to just cock a ball pistol and blast his skull out. But here's the thing. For all of the nonsense I see about how, the Emperor was a bad father, the Emperor was responsible, the Emperor was ridiculously lenient with his sons. Even in the case of Lorgar, who flagrantly went against the Emperor's every command for decades. What did the Emperor do? He gave him a smack across the wrist and took away one of his toys. The Emperor was a remarkably lenient leader, as far as I can see anyways. But the Raven Guard are saved. What little remained of them anyways. Some 3,000 plus soldiers from Corax's intervention force and 1,000 soldiers under the command of Bran. And of course, then we proceed onwards to the events of the Raven Guard novel, where Corax tries, and in part succeeds, to rebuild his legion through the, well-intentioned but sadly somewhat over-optimistic Raptors program. That and the intervention of the Alpha Legion, those little shits, of course. Anywho, I will wrap this one up here, and then we will move on to number 6, Graham McNeil's Death of a Silversmith. If memory serves, that one's relatively short, and then we will wrap things up with Aaron Dembski-Bowden's Prince of Crows. Till next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.